Okay, I'm learning right along with you. You can see that. Hey, thanks everybody for, first of all, joining Best Dog Ever, and secondly, for coming on this group chat. One of the things that I mentioned was that I was going to talk about problems and expectations, what it's important to spend your time with, and what you don't want to bother with. That doesn't mean that you necessarily accept your dog's behavior as is. It might mean that you're going to manage things slightly different. Let me give you an example of some things that you better darn well accept. Just like people, dogs have different requirements for space. There are people who are very touchy-feely, love to be hugged, love that physical contact, love to be close all the time. I was just talking to a friend of mine. She's in a relationship, long-distance relationship, but she's going to move in with her boyfriend, and it's been about 8 years since she lived with anyone. She said how much she misses it and how much better she does as a person to I don't know, just in their daily living. As she's explaining this, do you know what I'm thinking? Oh my goodness, get me out of town. It would make me feel so claustrophobic, and I do so much better alone. Think about this in terms of your dog. There are dogs that you can come up and get touchy-feely with all the time, and they love it. They thrive on it. There are other dogs that you really have to respect their space, particularly when there are children involved. Sorry about that cart that's going past, by the way. She's a little noisy, but we'll be leaving soon. Um, you've got to manage the dog space a little bit differently. So, Catherine, thank you so much for that excellent video of your dog in the kitchen. Let me reference that right now. Um, Move my
Which
screen
which
here.
video?
It's this one where Jasper snaps at your daughter.
Yeah.
Okay. So you notice the movement and the anxiety, and Jasper wasn't the only one. I'm going to talk about this in specifically referencing other dogs. So you see the snap there. And I know that you said you set this up. Good for you using your little daughter as a guinea pig.
Sorry, I know that's awful, right?
No, I'm just harassing you. Um, and then you notice the verbal correction there too. Let me stop the video for a sec. All right. So there's an island, and the dog is moving around it. The younger shepherd seems to be much more content with this. But when you're gone, is Jasper behind that gate? Is that a typical thing?
Well, we crate train the dogs, and
And they're
usually
okay
if
in
I'm
their crate.
running,
Is that
I'm
right?
sorry, what?
Are they okay in their crate? They
Yeah,
accept
they're
being
they're fine. I
crated?
mean,
Okay.
I try to treat it as their home, and I put a radio on. They're not crated for very long. I have a part-time job, and normally if I just run someplace for a half hour, I'm slowly letting them have more freedom. My shepherd loves to chew, so I've got an issue with that. So I gotta watch where I leave them. But generally, I do put them in the kitchen and I gate them off. So sometimes it could be an hour in there or a half hour.
Okay. And it's more about warehousing the dogs while you're out doing errands and other things. This is
Correct.
what I want you to start to think about, and I want everybody to think about this. And bear with me, I'm going to sound like a broken record. If you have been in my classes, you have heard about tie-out stations and the value of tie-out stations. Let me reiterate. It's the simplest way to make your dog comfortable in his own home and teach him to stay out of the way. Think about if you give a dog, you bring a new dog into a home. The place that he is going to lie, if left to his own devices, I want you to answer that question silently. You're on your own right now. It's going to be in the traffic pattern where he has the greatest view of the environment. Consequently, people are going to be stepping over him. Consequently, he is never going to get good rest because he's always on alert. Consequently, the dog who's been stressed out, his stress is going to increase. Here's how to change it. And I'm going to send a link to the tie-out stations. You need to watch this again. Your dog needs a tie-out station in every main room of the house. For about 4 weeks, you are going to tie your dog on that station while you are in that room but engaged in other activities. When the dog is off of the tie out station, for many of you, since you're problem solving a lot of different things, you'll want to keep him leashed. Therefore, you can interact with him, you can play with him, you can practice a couple of commands, you can just sit there and cuddle with him. And then, as soon as you get back into your own activities, he goes back in the tie out station. What he learns about that is that he he doesn't the typical dog, when you get engaged in other activities, they look for mischief. That young shepherd looks for an opening. Hey, this would be a great time to chew on that favorite shoe that's really stinky. This is a
Yeah.
favorite time for grabbing the remote control. That's a normal dog. So you need to change that and repattern the dog. The tie out stations are the easiest way to do it. Now, here's a tip. People tend to be more resistant to the tie out stations than I'd like to admit, but it's true. It's a fact. I was visiting some friends yesterday and we were relaxing and enjoying ourselves. And I was just thinking, if my dog were here during this time, they'd be relaxing, but they'd probably be in the middle of the room. They might be a little bit underfoot so that people who are getting up off the sofa and navigating around the coffee table have to step over the dog. Instead of that, that dog, when he relaxes, if he's in the middle of the room, you say, oh, good boy, and walk him over the tie out station and put him on there and give him lots of love for being on the tie out station. Start developing a really good association for that tie out station. George, you are also on the call. And Iron Man, oh, and by the way, is Colleen on the call? I hope that Colleen, who submitted the video of anxiety with the Cocker Spaniel, she may or may not be on this call. But I want to talk to George about Iron Man. That's his 13-year-old who was a rescue and had a really bad start. But boy, is this a happy, energetic dog despite his age and despite a really rough start. But I've got some bad news, George. I've got some bad news, Colleen. Your problem is that is the toughest of all of the members of the Best Dog Ever group. That is the toughest problem. Because dogs who whine and are anxious like that, but still happy and still very normal dogs and solid dogs, they they don't even realize they're whining like that. But I'm going to give you some suggestions. Hopefully, it's not a lost cause. What you don't want to do is when the dog starts looking at you and whining, trying to figure out what he needs, because what he needs is just engagement from you. Uh, I don't care if he's hungry and he's got to pee. He's not dying. I know you as dog owners, you're not neglecting your dog's need. Oh my gosh, it's Thursday. I forgot to feed my dog. He hasn't eaten since Monday. I know that this is not the case. So what I want you to do instead, if he starts whining, put him on his tie out station. If he is likely to continue whining, possibly even barking. I do have a solution for that, but I don't want to talk about that until you've done this for a week first and we see whether it slows down. The even better option for the anxious whiner is to put him on a platform. And since these are both small dogs, this is easy. I am going to send you a video of the platform and I want you to implement that strategy. Okay, now I want to talk about walking nicely on a leash. At least 5 or 6 members have that question. For some dogs, it's just pulling on leash and needing to develop some better skills. For other dogs, it's shyness and being paranoid when they're on leash. For other dogs, it's displays of aggression, either toward other dogs or toward people. First things first. If A dog is, and now I'm going to be talking a little bit for a moment in general terms before I talk specifically about the leash walking. If your dog is experiencing problems, especially social skills and aggression, or even anxiety, you do want to look at your daily living situation with your dog. In other words, you've probably heard that, and there are different schools of thoughts, but I bet you've heard somebody say, oh, a dog should never sleep on your bed. Oh, you should never give your dog his dinner before you eat. You should never let a dog go through doors before you, because all of these things are going to establish a dominant cycle with your dog, and they're an invitation that there will be problems. Well, I kind of disagree. I think that there's nothing wrong with doing any of those things: sleeping, letting your dog sleep on the sofa or in the bed, feeding him before the family, letting him go through doors until there's problems. Then we may have to look at those. Um, so if your dog is, if you're really having a tough time with your dog, I think that yeah, at least temporarily, those are rules that you might want to follow. Um, Specifically with leash walking, if you're letting the dog, um, you're ambling along, taking slow walks, letting the dog stop where he wants to stop, letting him drag you to the places he wants to go, uh, it is not a good thing. When you walk, walk briskly with your dog, preferably on your left side, but if it's the right side, just be consistent with that. Or have a word for left side and a word for right side walking, and make the dog fall in with you. If you're taking a walk of about a half hour, don't stop every time the dog wants to stop. Predetermine like 2 or 3 locations where you're going to give the dog a potty break and a sniff break. And other than that, when you're walking, and make it all business. The second thing is that you can really cut your workload if you have the right equipment. So have a decent leash. Do not use a nylon leash for walking. Biothane or leather, and something that has a thickness appropriate to your dog's strength and weight is important. Sometimes I see people that who have far too flimsy leashes for the size and vigorousness of their dog. The Secret Powers collars are one of my favorites. I see a lot of people with just regular metal prong collars who uh, they can be tricky to attach to your dog. Inadvertently, they can get twisted. They can fall off if they're not well made or attached appropriately, and they can be really hard to put on. Some of those metal prongs are hard to bend into place. And on the other hand, once they bend, sometimes they lose integrity and again can fall off unexpectedly. The Secret Powers collars are something I will send a link to so you can see what that's about and all the nice features, including the feature that if you want to wean your dog off the collar, you can gradually slip out the prongs. Nancy, you have a separate problem at shows. At shows, a dog is not supposed to be on a prong collar. But if he's on a tight micro prong secret powers collar, and it's really high up around the ears, and don't keep the leash tight, there needs to be a little slack, and you need to correct him if he gets out of line. And if you see him getting out of line, he starts eyeballing a good looking flat coated retriever that he wants to go and say hi to, body block him. Do an abrupt left turn into him. And with any procedures that you do to get your dog in line, whether we're talking about leash walking or we're talking about household things, it's very rare that I'm going to tell you to verbalize anything to the dog. If you admonish him, tell him to stop it. He may stop it for the moment, but the likelihood of it getting connected in his brain that this is something he should never do is unlikely. It's much likelier he's going to get the message that this is a line that should never be crossed, and he's never going to get a verbal warning. He's going to get a physical body block. He's going to get a inappropriate strength jerk of the leash to dissuade him. And then you're going to enforce a sit stay, heeling, coming when called, a couple of downs in rapid fire succession. So don't forget that after a correction, you want to bond with your dog and build the teamwork by doing a series of commands. And you know what? Hopefully follow that with play, but get him mentally back in your territory. Because most problems stem from the dog tuning us out and becoming oblivious to us. If you can't get him his attention back on you, maybe you have to look at your sneak away techniques a little bit more closely. And the sneak away should be a familiar term to everyone except Janine. And Janine, for you, where I post the 7 bad habits to avoid while walking your dog, you're going to see a video on the sneak away, and I'd like you to review that. Now I want to take a look at some of these household behaviors. Let's see. I am looking for Corrine. Corrine, you've got that lovely little dog. Let me go to his video, okay? Got this lovely new dog. You were one of the first to post. And for some reason, why am I not seeing your video? It was done in the house. Pulling up one, and I'm not sure. Oh no, this is eating. Let me talk about this too right now. I'm just wondering if we have Angela Walker on the line. Or Walter, I'm sorry. Probably not, but a number of you had questions about feeding. It doesn't look like we have Penny on the line yet. Oh, we do have Penny on the line. Good deal. Okay.
Hi, Amy, it's Penny.
Hey, Penny, I'm so glad that you could make it. So we're talking about feeding here, and Penny submitted the good video of her German Shepherd dog eating. Her daughter walks around the corner, and then the dog growls at the daughter. Now, one of the things that people always tell me when they're having problems with the dog being growly about his food and tense and stressed out is that they feed the dog from hand, or while the dog is eating, they put their hand in the food bowl and then grab out the food and feed the dog. I've got bad news about that. And I've got good news about that. First of all, if you've got a dog who's pretty accepting about feeding and you've been doing that, it's not going to make any difference, good or bad. If he's solid, he'll stay solid. The bad news is, for the dog who has a problem with it, they usually get more stressed out. And when they get more stressed out, these antisocial behaviors are going to manifest in increasing ways around the food dish. My advice for feeding, and this goes for Barb too, with that puppy that was hovering around, whether it's a dog or a person who's hovering around the food dish, I say that this is a spot where you need to respect the dog's space. You need to change the environment. I want you to look at a very quiet space for feeding. Hopefully, generally speaking, most dog owners feed their dog twice a day. That is a good policy to follow. There are very certain exceptions where people will find that their dog needs to be fed once a day or 3 times a day. So there's a little modification or wiggle room there. Let's suppose that you feed your dog twice a day. He's got to learn to eat within about 5 minutes, give or take, so that when it comes time for feeding, you feed him in an out of the way place, someplace that there's not traffic, there's not people milling about. There's not other dogs milling about. You can feed him side by side with another dog, but if you do that, they're going to have separate bowls, separated by, at least about 5 feet. And both of those dogs are going to be on a short tie out station, so they cannot reach the other dog's food bowl, and they can't stare at the dog while he's eating if they finish first. When you feed the dogs, if you have multiple dogs in your household, when you feed them on tie out stations, it doesn't take very long where they learn not to mess with the other dog's food dish. And by the way, after feeding, pick up those food bowls. You should have water down for your dogs. There are exceptions on that too, but generally speaking, have the food bowls down. And if the dog's aggression has extended to toys and certain items, well, if that's bringing out a nasty side of your dog, the only time he should get those items is when everybody's out of the house. Okay, that'll be his item to focus on when he's totally solo. As soon as people
Can I
come
ask?
home, yeah. Do you have a
I'm
question?
sorry, Amy. Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
This is Penny. We have a 5-month puppy who plays with toys, and then so do we not leave toys down for him either? Then
Tell me what happens with the older dog or with toys in the household. Does she get tense? Does she get stressed? Are you noticing some of the same behavior she's exhibiting around her food dish?
yes, she is very like possessive over her toys.
Okay.
Well, even when she doesn't have toys, you can walk past her and she'll growl.
Okay. What kind of toys are available to her right now? And rank them in the order of the worst thing to any item that you can provide to her that's benign, that doesn't bring out that possessiveness and territoriality.
She's the same way with every toy. There's like not one specific toy that she's more possessive over. She's like that
Okay.
with any toy.
Okay, that's good information for me to have. Tell me, give me an example of 3 or 4 toys that you have in the house.
Rubber ball with the nylon bones.
We have a rubber ball with nylon bones at the end where you put a treat on. You like unscrew the bone part, and then you put a treat on it, and then you screw the bone back together.
Mhm.
Um,
Rag rope.
um,
Rags on it.
a rickety rope, a rope with. My husband's telling me what toys we have. We have a squeaky pig that she likes.
And she gets
Um,
growly over that too.
yeah, she gets growly over everything.
Everything. Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. So thank you for those examples. Good to know. You've got a 5-month-old puppy who's going to have a lot heavier chewing needs. You're going to need a tie-out station in each room for both dogs. Again, out of the traffic pattern. Your youngest child is not all that young, if I recall, like 7, 8, 9.
She said, "Yep, 7."
Okay, good. So she can follow instructions to know to stay away from the dog when she's on the tie-out station. But several times a day, with adult supervision, what I want you to do is take her off of the tie-out station and interact with your daughter. Your daughter can take the leash and, kind of jog around the house with her. Maybe if she's with a 7-year-old, this may or may not work depending on her attention level. But teaching her the proper way to give like a sit stay command, you working with coming when called, back and forth between people in the household. And when the dog does come, offering a little treat, but the dog is on leash. So you are enforcing that come command the whole time.
Okay.
But again, when the dogs are on the tie out stations, I want you for the next week to make sure that they have toys and that people, for the most part, are ignoring them and just going about their daily routine. And then when the dogs are off the tie out stations, you're interacting with the dogs in the absence of the toys. I want you to do that for a week so that you can report to me what's happening as a result, and then I can give you your next assignment. But in order to reduce your dog's stress level, I want you to eliminate that stress for 1 week. Okay. And that's not just advice for you, Penny. On going back, let me take a look at some of the specific problems here. We've got John and Layla on the line, and you've got a new baby. Congratulations. Wow, that's got to be kind of overwhelming. And then you've got some problems to deal with that your dog isn't adjusting so well. But for your sanity and also as a stress reliever, the tie outs are going to be extremely important in reducing the stress level. I would also start, in this case, getting your dog off of the couch, for instance, and controlling the dog's space by using the tie out stations. Um, Now, let's see here. Is James
Amy, can
still?
I ask you a
Yes.
question?
Yeah. And who
This
am I
is
speaking
Karen.
with?
This is this is
Hi,
Karen
Karen.
Ward.
Oh, and I was
Hi.
just talking about that dog. Yes.
Yeah. I have a question on feeding. You said only give the dog 5 minutes to eat.
Yes.
That's one question. Why that? And the other question is, you said if you're feeding two dogs together, that's okay. Put them on tie out. Is it also okay to just feed them in separate places?
It would be okay to feed them in separate places. For convenience sake, I would take the lazy route and feed them in the same location. But if you've got more patience than I do, to put one dog in one area and another in another area, certainly that's absolutely fine. Let's talk about the 5 minutes. Uh, if you're having stress around food, free feeding is a bad idea. Although I will say dogs that are free fed and just kind of pick at their meals all day long, I don't usually see that they get as anxious around food. For me personally, though, I don't like to feed that way. I like when I put the food down that my dogs eat right away, so that it's more convenient for me when I was showing dogs and as I was traveling, of course, to do it that way and making sure that I was controlling the amount of food that my dog gets. Um, but also, um, I like to teach those dogs that you put the food down, they eat. Hopefully, they don't wolf it down like it's the Last Supper, but that they're eating in a timely fashion, and then it's all done. If you've a lot of the people on the call also have young dogs, and they're trying to control their potty habits, it's easier to do that. Also, when the dog is less picky, if you have to change around their diet, let's say they're having digestive issues and need to be on a bland diet, it certainly is going to be a lot easier for the less picky dog to consume what he needs to eat for his own health, regardless of whether it's not as palatable as his regular food.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions, Karen, on that note?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay. Um. Oh, Bucky. I don't. I don't know if we've got Elizabeth on the line. Do we have Elizabeth on the line? Okay. So Bucky has the cutest problem where uh, Bucky is wagging his tail. He's not at all possessive. If you're watching this on computer, you can see that he's holding on to his pink bunny for all his life, but he's wagging his tail, and he's just not opening up his jaws. So here's an exercise for Bucky, but it also relates to some of the more serious problems that we're having with the feeding issues. Okay, so you see there, he just doesn't want to open up his mouth, period. Yeah, it's hard not to laugh at that one. Okay, so this is my prescription for Bucky, and I'm going to tell you how it relates to the feeding situation. First of all, he should be on a leash here. He should be dragging a line or a leash. Hopefully you can see my cursor going from his collar and extending out, because the owner is going to be over here. In fact, I can switch this to a pointer if I can figure out what I'm doing. Oh yeah, here's my little highlighter here. Okay, so I've got my pen here. He's got a leash. You, as the owner, you let him get into chewing on his toys and enjoying himself fully. And then you position yourself right at the end of this line so that you've got your hand or your foot on it at least. And you can say, oh, Bucky, come. And when he doesn't, you are going to pick up that line and move him toward you to enforce that come command. You're going to make him come all the way in, and you're going to tell him to sit. Enforce that with the jerk up if you need to. Praise him, and then call him to come. Tell him to sit. Praise him. Do it again. So after the third time he sits, then you're going to tell him to give it to you with your hand on the item. And if he doesn't, you're going to have the other hand really close to his collar at this time. Remember, he's moved from this location to where you told him to come. And at this location, you're going to reach for his collar as you tell him to drop it, so you can give the collar a little jerk as you take that toy away from him. Now let's talk about how this works when I want to get rid of my pointer here. Okay. How it works when you want to get rid of the stress related to feeding. Let me go back to this one. Oh, how do I get rid of that drawing? Well, okay, so instead of petting your dog while he's eating, what you're going to do again is have the leash attached. Then you're going to walk out and you are going to call him away from his food dish. Come, sit, good dog. Come, sit, good dog. Come, sit. You're going to do that 3 times. And then you're going to say, okay, and let him go back to his food. I do not want you to do that for every feeding. I want you to only do that twice a week. But if you're going to be working on this exercise, so I'm talking to you here, Penny, you're going to, every time you're feeding, you're going to have her attached to a leash. And for the most part, that's just going to be there, and you're not calling her. But again, twice a week, you'll practice that exercise where you call her away from her food. What that is going to do is establish that your command takes priority over whatever she has. I use the example that you do it around food, but I also want you to practice this twice a week around a toy. So again, just like I showed with Bucky, wait till she's really engaged with the toy, then you mosey over to the leash so that you can call her to come and with energy enforce those commands. And with her, I want you to have a treat in your hand. So after the third or fourth come, then you say, good girl, give her a little treat and release her to go back to that toy.
Okay.
Okay.
I just have a question. Do I leave toys lay around for her and the puppy, or do I not?
Only when you're going to be setting up this activity, or only when the children aren't around. If there are toys out, I want you to choose the timing so it's at a moment where your house is most low key.
Okay.
Okay. Good question. I'm glad you did that. Okay. I wish I could figure out how to get rid of my writing here, but I can't. We've got Simon here now. Oh, now, okay, I want to stop and talk about commands. A couple of you sent situations where you gave a command, like in this case for Simon, it's sit. For a couple of the other dogs, it was a come command. This week, I want you not to make yourself vulnerable. In other words, before you give a command, you should be mentally and physically prepared to enforce it. Before you give a command, I want you to assume your dog is going to disobey that command. When you give commands, I want you to this week choose times that will be make it most likely that your dog is going to tune you out and think that he can blow off your command. For instance, like when somebody comes to the door. So that's going to require some forethought. Like if, let's say, your spouse is going to be arriving after work and coming through the side door, and that your dog gets really hyper then. I want you to ask your spouse to text or call you a few minutes beforehand so that if your dog isn't already on leash, you can do that. And then when your spouse comes to the door, they walk in. Hopefully, they're enforcing commands too. So say, hey, honey, I don't want you to fawn all over the dog. I want you to instead give a sit command and enforce it, which is probably going to be, if he's really high energy at that moment, a strong jerk upward as you push on his rear. But you're not going to repeat yourself. This is where the integrity comes in. Every time you give a command that goes unenforced, that's a learning experience. You've just taught your dog that it's hit or miss with whether sit means sit. No, sometimes sit means you just jump around. No, sometimes sit, it means that I just mouth at your clothing. No, sit, sometimes that means that I run over to the other dog in the house and start jumping and gnawing on him. So, in order to reestablish your integrity this week, no command should come out of your mouth unless you have the ability to enforce them. And if you want to talk specifically about enforcement, you can. But I think that since most of you have already gone through my classes, you've got reference materials. Maybe you have a DVD, especially the basic DVD. It's only about a half hour long. It would really be good to review that. Really, it'll bring back all of the things that we talked about in class because you've got busy lives, people. I do nothing. When I see what you've got going on in your lives with your family situations, and some of you are caretakers for a variety of different people in your lives, you're wonderful people. Thank you for doing all that you do. It's not easy. But uh, make yourself, bring yourself up to speed with your dog. Put your head in the game just a little bit by it, because this is going to pay off dividends by reviewing the basic Amiable DVD, or maybe you have the books, maybe you have the handbooks, maybe you have other books that I wrote. Those are all going to bring things to mind that maybe you've gotten a little bit sloppy about. All right. With the time we have remaining, only have about 5 minutes left on this call. I'm going to unmute everybody and open this up to some final questions before I wrap things up. Maybe I can figure out how. Does anyone just want to chime in right now?
Hello.
Hello. Is it Karen?
Hi, Amy.
Hi. Oh, and Nancy. Hi, Nancy.
Hi. When you said blocking the dog, what do I do to work on this before a show?
Yes. Oh, excellent question. When are the other times that he gets really excited? Can you think
When
of some
people come to the
examples?
door?
Yeah. What else? Is
Uh,
there anything else? Anytime on walk.
uh, uh, Only if he's greeting other dogs.
Do you
He
still go to?
wants to go play.
Yeah. Are you still taking them to class, confirmation class or otherwise? Does he get excited
Uh,
there?
he does, but no, we haven't been going lately.
Okay. I think your best opportunities for practicing are just what you mentioned. And if you can get them, since it's so beastly out there and hard to walk, and even if you are walking, you might be slipping on black ice. I don't want you to risk any of that. So the safer training environment for you is going to be an indoor training hall or in the house. So when people come to the door, I am going to make a video of this, but I have to wait until Saturday when I have I teach a class on Saturday, and then I will have access to some different dogs. The body block I'm talking about is similar to the left turn that you see in me doing during healing in the video. It's
Okay.
I also sometimes do this on sneakaways where after if the dog alerts to a distraction or bolts off for a distraction and I reverse directions, when I stop, instead of doing a right about turn to return to the distraction and see if the dog is under better behavior, I will turn 190 degrees. I'll do a hairpin turn to the left into the dog. And that's the body block that is going to be most useful to use at a show because it appears to be a low key type of correction, or maybe not a correction either. You just stumbled accidentally into your dog. Oh, aren't we clumsy? But it really establishes, if you do it right, that your dog becomes super aware and stays slightly back of your left hip, which is the best place for a dog who is excitable in public and tends to get out of control. Uh,
Okay.
so, anyone else want to chime in with a question? That was a good one, Nancy. Thank you.
I do, Amy. It's Kristen.
Kristen, I just saw you on the list and realized I didn't address specific with your dog. So ask your question, please.
Well, that's okay because there's so many. Each of them is so different. But
Yeah.
and for everyone else that is here listening, I don't know if anyone has, a dog or two dogs that are from the same litter. We do.
Mhm.
And after trading with you, and then you left, so then we went with another company too. The guy told us about a litter syndrome. And he said, believe it or not, it's true. It really works. And not that I didn't believe him, but with all the problems that we're going with our two dogs, I more than ever believe in this. And it's basically the dogs have, like a pack bond, but it's like 10 times stronger because they're from the same litter. And they always recommend that you never get two dogs from the same litter. And I think, more and more as time is going on, now we didn't see this early on when they were babies, but Jordy particularly is so possessive, and Jax at times will feed off of that too, where now he's learning Jordy's poor behavior, and sometimes it just spirals out. So did you ever hear of this?
Yeah.
What
I
is your
want to
thoughts on it?
ask the other callers. Thank you for bringing that up. Have any of the other callers on the line owned litter mates?
Yes, I did. I owned two huskies, but it was a male and a female.
Okay. And this is Catherine,
Yes.
right? Oh, okay. Thanks, Catherine. Did you notice a difference in the way that they bonded versus you've owned two dogs that are not litter mates in the past, which isn't necessarily a fair comparison because what we really should be comparing is two people who got dogs simultaneously that weren't litter mates and or I'm sorry, a person who got two dogs who weren't litter mates simultaneously versus someone who got litter mates, regardless of whether it was the same time or not. I can tell you that from my experience. What's your experience, Catherine?
Well, because they were male and female, I mean, obviously we got them fixed right away, so we wouldn't have an issue with that. And it was funny because we had it was Simon and Sable. I don't know if you remember them. It was a long time ago. We went through probably 14 years ago or so.
Yeah.
And when we went through the training, and Simon was much bigger than Sable, but Sable, I think, was the alpha out of the two of them, which was very interesting. And They never bit each other, but they would get into each other's business and growl once in a while, but nothing, they never bit each other, and they play and everything. And I thought they had a good relationship, so I never really had any issue
Yeah.
like that, like it seems like Kristen has.
Right, right. And I have not owned litter mates, but I have gotten dogs simultaneously. My opinion about this is, regardless, um, there are some issues there. And I think that we should be looking at the issues and resolution rather than saying, "Oh, that's the cause of it." So my thing here, and I do remember the first time that we had a session together that the dogs were over bonded, and that's the issue. That regardless of whether they're litter mates or not, this happens. I see it repeatedly, and when I have simultaneous dogs, they are separated a lot. I work them together and separately, and when I work them together, I might heal them. As a team, I might do sit stays as a team. I might do recalls at a team, but I'm also going to be having one dog on a sit stay while I work and play the other dog. And then I'm going to reverse it. And I'm going to keep doing that so that the dog knows, they learn to be more autonomous. The other thing is, I'm seeing, I've got your video up here right now. Thank you for sending the videos, by the way, Kristen. Um, they're in this traffic pattern here. This is going to increase the stress. I need to see that both of these dogs have their tie out stations and start to learn to stay out of that traffic pattern. That's going to improve behavior in and around the house. It's going to also tend to reduce the overbonding that has occurred. I know that you mentioned that you and your husband are taking the dogs separately. Continue doing that. That's a really good practice. But this week, I want you to start establishing those tie-out stations and report back on what you find, and we'll take it from there.
Okay.
Any other comments?
I just want to say thank you so much, Amy. I have to go tonight, and I'm looking forward to the next session.
Oh, and thank you for joining, Karen. Talk to you then.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So in wrapping this up, James is also on the line. We talked a little bit about walking skills. And when I post that video on body blocking, this is going to be really important for Quest too. And when you're walking him, is he already on a prong collar, James? What kind of equipment do you have on Quest?
Quest has a prong collar.
Okay, good, good. Do you feel, and what type of leash? I think you've got a leather leash, don't you? Or is it a nylon leash?
No, it's a nylon with
Okay.
a loop at both ends.
Yeah, I want you to get a regular leather leash, a really good leather leash. I don't know if Fleet Farm still has a good selection. But many, many years ago, I felt that they had some of the best equipment at the most reasonable prices. That may have changed, but with the leather, and I don't want you to put your whole hand around it. I want you to review that basic tape and make sure that you're using the best technique. For a lot of the stress, when I was addressing dogs who are experiencing stress, it's important to stay low key. It's important to stay calm. And I'm going to give you different advice. You are the coolest, calmest, uh, so gentle and friendly. James and I have known one another from the gym and then later through dog training, but we became acquainted about 20 years ago. James, I hope you don't mind sharing that you're a retired police officer. So people may say, really? That sounds kind of out of character. I don't know, one way or another. I haven't known enough officers personally. But I want you to channel your inner badass. I want you to make sure that your techniques are spot on. Your handling skills have to be super good given Quest's size and given his history. I think if Quest could talk, he'd say, yeah, you know, James, he is the kindest, gentlest, friendliest guy you would ever know. And he has given me pass after pass. I know that you think you've been more of a badass with him, but if he could talk, I wonder if he'd say the same. So when I want you to be that wonderful guy, but I want you to turn on him like Jekyll and Hyde, and you better really give some powerful, spot-on corrections. And I want you to add to your repertoire the body block, which you'll have to wait till Saturday for that video. Okay?
Okay.
I hope you don't mind me saying that. And if you do, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. You can call me out on this in private, and I'll never do it again. Um, okay. So that's going to be all for our phone call today. I will give a synopsis probably by video tomorrow. And then you can look also for video links that support what I already told you to do. In the meantime, keep posting your videos. If you implement any of these suggestions, I'd like you to get that on video so I can take a look, and it'll be easy for me to tweak things. Just because I said it so doesn't mean it's going to work out like I anticipated, and I may backpedal and say, oh, no, I see what's going on. I want you to do this. But at least we've got a baseline. All right, everybody. You have a doggone great day. Talk to
Thank
you.
you, Amy.
On Hawaii.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Aloha.
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 Sorry, Amy, I don't know how to hang up.
Oh, you don't? That's a good question.
Oh, I got it.
Okay.
I got it. Thank you.
Penny.
Bye.
Good evening, Amy.
Hello, John. I'm so glad that you could join the call. What did you think?
It sounded like a lot of good information, and I just had a specific question to follow up.
Oh, please. I'm glad you stayed on the line. Yes.
We're very aggressive people, so it was hard to get in on the Q&A. We'll give the tie-outs a run for the money this week. I was wondering if there was anything else that we should follow up with, experiment with this week with Dexter. He's a very smart dog, very intelligent, very respectful, until he feels like he or usually his people are threatened, and then he tends to defend viciously.
Yes. Give me an example of that.
Start. Well, my wife recently gave birth to our son. He's 5 weeks old now, but for the last couple months, he has actually defended the bedroom from me. I mean, he won't allow me through the threshold into the bedroom.
Where is he standing at that point? Or lying? Or where's he placed during that time?
He stands in the bedroom door, will viciously bark, snap, snarl.
So he's standing in the doorway too?
He stands in the doorway, every sign of aggression he could give, and if I walk past him into one of the other bedrooms, he'll come over, and he's real friendly and sweet and gentle, and then as soon as I walk back toward the doorway, the aggression starts again.
Yep. I never want him to be off leash this week. If he's not on the tie out, he should be dragging the leash, so that if he ends up standing somewhere that he's going to guard, you pick up that leash and you hoist him away from that. Don't say anything. This is going to be really important that a dog like Dexter not receive verbal corrections. It is all physical and it's fast. And it's over in a split second. What that does is it cuts to the chase. It's very clear where he crossed the line. Whereas when you use verbal corrections, it's not clear to a dog at all. And that's why they tend to be unsuccessful. I think that when your mom
One
first
thing
I think that when your mom first contacted me, she I sent an email. Hopefully she got that. And it's got a link on the tie out stations at least. And I'm going to see if it's got any additional special links. But whatever I included, spend a few minutes taking a look at those videos.
she sent that along to us, and we tried to work through that with my father.
Oh, good.
When my dad was Dexter saw my father as the aggressor, and when my dad grabbed his leash to correct him,
yes,
he actually went after my dad for grabbing the leash.
So
he hadn't even
as your dad was stooping down for the leash to pick it up, that's when it happened.
Yep.
Is that right? Okay. Okay. I'm glad that you clarified that. What kind of collar is Dexter on?
Martingale.
Does it ever slip over his head? I have that problem with some of the martingales because of the way they're designed.
No, we haven't had it slip. He's a 25-pound sight hound mix. They talk about him being a part Doberman, but he doesn't. Other than the coloring, there's no connection.
Sure. And he's how many pounds? Again, you said 20? You broke up just a little there. Was it 20 pounds?
25.
25 pounds? Okay, good. So here's the thing. I'm glad that you added that information about him biting. That definitely can happen. And when it does, it changes things just a little bit. When your dad was going to pick up that leash, was he talking to Dexter or looking at him? Or can you describe a little bit more about how that went down?
Dexter had already.
I wasn't in the room. My wife was. Do you want to go over her?
Dexter had already been snarling at him, and they were in the doorway. And I don't recall, but I know that there was eye contact. I think John's dad said something to him.
Okay.
It happened really fast.
Yeah, I bet it did. Okay, so you gave your dad good advice, but because of Dexter's behavior, we've got to modify it just a little bit. So if that happens in the future, Layla, try to have your hands free, or whoever, John, Layla, either one of you can do this. You are going to pick up that leash and you're going to walk very abruptly with a short leash around your house for about 90 seconds. So for about a minute, you're just going to walk briskly and you're going to kind of drag him. You're going to give Dexter a couple of jerks and you're going to go like crazy. What that movement does is it tends to diffuse the aggression. Now I want you to try to hand that leash back to your dad. But if you think Dexter might launch himself and try to bite your dad, he needs to get into a class with a really good instructor, a dog trainer who doesn't just have a little bit of education. Rather, they've got an abundance of hands-on work with dogs. There are too many dog trainers out there that build themselves as behaviorists, and again, they fall into that category of a little education becomes a dangerous thing in the hands of someone with not a lot of firsthand experience. I know that your mom said that you are looking for a trainer, and I have a former associate that I'd like you to contact. I don't know how he is training now. I don't know if he's the perfect fit for Dexter or not, but his name is Todd Thurber. And if you can write that down, just do a Google search. His business is called Come, Sit, Stay, and Play. It's located in West Milwaukee, I believe. And then the
Okay.
other one is, oh gosh, what is their business called? Oh, uh, uh, Positively something. Oh gosh, it's in Oak Creek. There's another business that has Positively. I think it's Think Positively in New Berlin. It's not that one. It's the one that's owned by Tiffany Gutman.
Okay.
I think her name is Tiffany Gutman, and it's they used to be located in Oak Creek. So you might try Tiffany Gutman, dog trainer, Oak Creek, and see if you come up with something.
Okay, thank you.
And even if you start working with them, please stay in the group. If they haven't changed their training methods that much, I think doing them simultaneously will be very beneficial.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. So in the meantime, set up those tie-out stations. That's really the first thing. And try to give Dexter separately, try to give Dexter as much exercise, vigorous exercise as possible.
Okay.
Would you say to keep him away from the baby's spaces? I mean, it's part of that keeping him out of the foot traffic, I guess.
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
Yeah. If you're taking like the baby stroller and stuff out, if you can control Dexter enough to have him on a short leash walking beside the stroller and being a part of that activity, I do see that as beneficial though. I know it's freezing, but maybe there's an indoor.
Way too long.
Yes. Say hi to the baby for me.
Thank you.
Will do.
You're welcome. Talk to you soon.
A lot of good stuff.
Oh, good.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Please.